Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Gamers Without Borders. We have another series on the way. There's plenty of best of threes here today. And now, another Protoss enters the fray to try and fight for survival. My name's Kalaris here for Gamers Without Borders, and joining me to my left-hand side to talk about this one, it's Wardy and Loco still. So, guys, let's look at what is coming up here. Classic going up against GuMiho. It bears repeating, Wardy, when we look at GuMiho, he looked fantastic in the previous bracket last weekend, and now he's not got another shot to try and get through once again.
Yeah, no, GuMiho was a breath away from making it last weekend. It's almost heartbreaking. You've got to come back and start all over this weekend, but man, if he brings half of what he brought last weekend, there's a pretty good chance he qualifies anyway. And of course, you saw him do well. I mean, the road is ahead of him, basically what it was last week. You know, he starts off with the best three against a Protoss. Well, a lot of people would say Classic's a downgrade from Hero. And then the next match is a Zerg, and a lot of people would say Ragnarok's a downgrade from Dark. And well, GuMiho beat Hero, and he very narrowly beat Dark. So I would say that GuMiho's got a very good shot here. I said it in the pre-show, though. I think this match is going to be very, very fun. So fun, I've frozen in time.
Jeez, wow. Oh, okay. Loco, I think that Water brings up a good point. The fact that GuMiho looked so good against Hero of all people, that's got to be good omens for this series, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely with Wardy. I think when you talk about like who the strongest Protoss players in the world are, I don't think everybody's or anybody's really going to bring up Classic as the first name. Classic is, of course, really good. Yeah, but I think most people will probably say Hero is a little bit better. And considering Gumi ended up winning against Hero last week, he should certainly make a really, good series against Classic as well. Then again, though, Classic is really strong in Protoss versus Terran right now, so I think this is going to be a really close one.
Yeah, definitely. On the other side of things, though, Classic coming in, this is his first opportunity here at Games Without Borders to try and qualify for Gamers 8. If I cast my mind back to even watching some of Wardy's tournaments, we saw him doing pretty well against the likes of people like Maru, for example, which is no small feat in itself, Loco. So, you know, maybe he can hang.
Yeah, in that series, he ended up losing 3-2 against Maru, if I'm not mistaken. But before that, he ended up beating Björn. So Classic's PVT is looking solid right now. Maru and Björn, of course, some of the very best Terrans in the world. Then again, GuMiho does play a little bit differently. He likes going for the, the more cheesy strategies and the variety. Maru and Björn usually a little more stock standard. I think Classic will probably feel pretty good, though, defending. Hey, look, Wardy's back.
Ooh, Wardy. Yeah. Talk to us about some of those series from Classic, because it was your tournament. You were covering them.
Yeah, Classic really, before Katowice, I really felt like Classic was a player who was just, middling, kind of getting by, still playing some StarCraft. Then in Katowice, it was like, oh, Classic's really good. And since then, I feel like he's kept that sort of level. He's been playing so good. Yeah, every time I cast him, I'm impressed by him. Like, he's super competitive. There's almost nobody that takes him down without him putting up a pretty darn good fight. So I actually think Classic is low-key one of the very best out there right now.
Fair. And we'll see if he can actually defeat GuMiho in this best of three. We have Ancient Cistern, Royal Blood, and Gresvan if we need it. I do feel like, Loco, you were mentioning Royal Blood obviously coming in a lot. I feel like every series last weekend we saw Royal Blood. It's just become such a staple.
Yeah, most of the maps seem pretty balanced right now, and obviously in a best of three you can veto 2 of them, so if you don't really like any of the maps, you can get rid of them pretty easily. I'm curious how this series is going to go, though, because Gumi likes to usually throw a curveball in the earlier stages of a match, but Classic likes to play that very defensive style. Yeah. There's a very good chance that if Classic just manages to shut down Gumi in the earlier stages of these matches, that just a sharp timing attack after that is going to, well, clear out GuMiho's base.
If you'd have told me 5 or 6 years ago GuMiho was going to be a really aggressive Terran in people's faces all the time, I'd have called you a liar back then. But anyway, here we are. It's time now, thank you very much, gentlemen, to head on over to the commentary team here for our next best of 3 of the day.
Thank you very much, James. That's right. It's the same boys over here commentating, and aren't we lucky? An action-packed PVT. We've got the original macro Protoss himself, Classic, the man who can cheese. He can do a lot of different things. He is kind of the Swiss Army knife Protoss, but just defensive, solid macro has always been what he's best at in this particular matchup.
Yeah, like I was a little bit surprised that you called him the classic macro Protoss, because for me that's like stats / raid or so. But Classic has always been the scary guy, like the guy that can do it all. Like we'll all absolutely be remembering together that BlizzCon where he whipped out that cool DT play and stuff, and before that he was just he was the Terran. Like, he was the first loss to a foreigner in Pro League in like 13 years or something to Thorzane. And then he switched race and became one of the best Protosses the world's ever seen. And like, you know, he's been an absolute murderer. Like, the way that he plays Protoss back then before he went to the army was just sleek, it was cool, it was dirty. And he could also back it up with good fundamentals. And it's really nice to see that coming back from the army, in fact, both these boys coming back from the army, that they're just playing really solid again. Like, StarCraft is just, it flows through their veins, they're damn good at it, and they bring very, very, very chaotic styles to the table.
Absolutely. We would have seen a lot more of Classic in GSL if it wasn't for Zest. Right before Zest had to go to the military, he blocked Classic multiple times in really close series from qualifying to Codes. So, you know, a lot of people were like, oh, I guess Classic's not that good anymore and not trying that hard. And I was like, guys, like, the best PvP player in the world keeps barely beating him in close series. Like, it's just really unfortunate qualifier brackets that he had. But still a very good Protoss player, of course, up against the most creative Terran player in the world is always going to be something you're going to have to scout very well. Down here in the bottom left side of the map, he has been a champion 10 years ago. He wants to get back to that level again. It's Classic.
And spawning over in the top right here as our blue Terran, it is a GuMiho.
GuMiho has a really cool build in TVP, which I hope we get to see in this series, where he actually goes double reactor and on his barracks and gets only one tech lab to get both, and just has an ungodly number of Marines at an early moment in the game, and especially paired with a couple of siege tanks. He has these firepower timings where you're like, wow, that is way more damage than any other Terran has at this moment in the game. And he's kind of a master of like that style, where he also prioritizes attack upgrades and doesn't care about armor sometimes. So it's, you know, you might see him with like +3 attack, +1 armor, and a crazy amount of Marines. At some point, he does just go to standard TVP, and he's very capable of playing, you know, the Marauders and the double upgrades and all that sort of stuff. But I love that he's got so much flexibility as a player.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, even the ability to maybe whip out mech here and there. I mean, maybe not so much in TVP these days, but obviously in the other matchups, he absolutely adores it. But yeah, one thing that really strikes me right now about GuMiho is his willingness to just throw Marines at you with a bunch of tanks and a few SCVs and get some bunkers up and rolling. Like, he's very shameless about it as well. It's like, if he knows he can kill you, or even close to kill you, he absolutely will try it, which makes him very scary. And we got to see that he did utilize that a lot against Hero in his series last week. And here already, going for a tech lab early on. Is that on his barracks? Like, that's already strange. That's already strange, isn't it?
This is like GuMiho down to a T. He's the one guy that will always randomly build Marauders in the early game, like just defensively. It's so funny, like, you know, there's strange mech players you play on the ladder are like usually the only people that you will do this. They're like, yeah, get 2 concussive Marauders, because then Protoss can't do anything to me. And you're like, what? That's so weird. But also, if you sneak him across the map, you might catch a Stalker, you might catch an Adept. It often forces a shield battery. And this does flow pretty well into that double reactor build I was talking about, if he does end up going in that direction. Second barracks is on the way behind it. He's going to go for the 1 Marine, 2 Marauder pressure across the map. Classic going for a Stargate.
We'll get a factory up and running. I mean, Stargate's not bad against this at all. Like, especially if you go for an Oracle, like straight away, you're in pretty okay shape. But the fact that he kind of went for this bypass here, okay, Marauder is revealed. So Classic does know that he is against some kind of Marauder tech here. And these Marauders will be arriving pretty soon. There isn't a shield battery on the way for him at all either. Like, Classic is pretty vulnerable against this, and that Stalker isn't necessarily what you want either. But, Phoenix is weapon of choice. I mean, taking out one of the units up in the air, but look at that. Classic's actually doing a full-on pull against this.
Yeah, good response by immediately shading both Adepts and pulling the probes. Probes don't take that much damage from Marauders. There's no armored units here to get that bonus. And it's going to be 2 probes going down, but losing the Marauder and the Marine. GuMiho has to pull back with the second one, of course. That will fall on back. Robo's on the way behind this. It's not a bad pressure for GuMiho. It really pushes the Protoss in a corner as well. And scouting-wise, because the Adepts are at home, they really don't know what your follow-up is.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be super honest, Pig. Whenever I've tried these Marauder replays, I've always been like, I'm never doing that again. Like, you know, it never works out for me. Like, I think they're absolutely designed to play against something. And if you don't go up against that, then it's like, damn, you know, it didn't work out for me. But so far, Classic's dealing with this very nicely. And GuMiho, he has to be a little bit careful, because losing the units that he did and kind of being on the back foot a little bit. And the fact that Classic is going to get to Phoenix without going up against anything super scary, like Widowmine drops and all that, yeah, I don't think he's going to be feeling bad at all.
+1 weapons on the way, siege tanks, stim, and a lot of marines. Building a safety bunker is GuMiho right now, as well as a missile turret. Perhaps a little too defensive for him. He's actually up against a very turtley Phoenix Colossus play from Classic. And it is a situation where GuMiho could lean into a big 2-base tank bunker push with turrets, or he could take a 3rd command center. But going for bunkers and turrets of his own, definitely not something that's going to further either his aggression or his ability to build his economy past 2 bases. And those Phoenix still going to get in and get a little bit of damage here.
Did you say he had a starport already with this, or is he literally just relying on like 3 barracks? And, oh, okay. I think this is one of those games, Pig. This is one of those games where, you know, you already said, like, he's going to whip out a lot of Marines. He's going to have Stim +1, and it's going to be tanks. That starport is so late that it's almost like, I don't want to say redundant, but it's going to be one of those late, like, if the game keeps on going, okay, I might trickle a few medevacs in, but I think Classic, as long as he's decently positioned against this, he should be okay. His scouting's been all right too.
He could defend it, but he was a bit indecisive. He started to disrupt a castle, then started the Colossus. Oh, the Phoenix get a bit of damage on the tank. Not bad. It's just a shame it's only 2 Phoenix. And this is such a classic opening where he's like, you scouted me going Phoenix. No point continuing building them. And he swaps out of it. But now he sees the attack coming. He starts building them again. A Marauder gets picked off, as does a Cyclone. Wow, that's a shutdown on the start of that push.
And Classic's all over this scouting-wise, man. Like, this observer at the top here won't be known about by GuMiho, or at least, even if it is, what does he do about it? He's like, you know what? Gonna go home. And that starport that he had, like, that was such a late starport that it's like, can you afford to get a naked, or rather a reactor on it straight away kind of thing? Like, no. If you want medevacs for when they matter, which is right here, right now, especially with this that he kind of wanted to do, but it's been shut down. Yeah, this is not looking so healthy for GuMiho.
Classic's economy is not that large, though. He did have to respect the push, so he stopped probing for a while. Definitely a good position for Classic, but there are reasons that GuMiho still has options in this game. The 3rd command center is building. If he could catch some of these Phoenix or shut them down, that'd be nice. But as it is, I mean, this is huge. Denying 1 SCV on that's very annoying. Denying a 2nd one and picking off the barracks SCVs and a 3rd one. Okay, this is getting to the point where GuMiho is just getting shut down. Not being able to build the 3rd is huge.
It really is. And the fact that it's on location as well, it's like, man, you really want to build it, right? Like, you really do. And like, even your army isn't necessarily going to win a straight-up fight here either. I mean, no combat shields to speak of. These Phoenix...
Oh, okay, it does survive for now. But as you said, yeah, no combat shields there either, Ben. It's going to kick in a moment, but the tanks, there's immortals on top of them, there's units on top of it.
Oh, and the Phoenix come back in here. They deflected the drop, and now they're here to make the tank's life a lot worse. And those tanks, absolutely redundant. They didn't get anything done whatsoever. These slow zealots as well are doing a good job of tanking this. This is such a misfit fight, but GuMiho kind of going for a flank, but that is the most disappointing little 3-marine flank of all time. And that army just got absolutely obliterated. GG, well played, Classic.
Well, that Marauder opening, I don't mind a Marauder or 2 defensively to try and just catch an Adept coming across the map. And I've definitely seen the aggression work out, but I'm with you, Muslim. It feels to me like we do often see it fall flat. And unfortunately, the Adept handling, the Pro Pool, Classic knew exactly what to do. It felt like he just jumped on top of the Marauder pressure. And you could tell GuMiho was a little paranoid about a counter push, building like bunkers and a wall off and turrets, and then said, oh, okay, let's go for the Marine tank push. But that was scouted the moment it left the base, and from there, we had a Classic in control. Very quick robo production. That Immortal and that Colossus, the Observer, all did heavy lifting. Every unit had a purpose in this game.
Yeah, and like, look at the supply, or rather, and in fact, not even the supply. The probe count was growing very quickly beyond it. He was using all his chrono boost to get out probes once he kind of realized, hey, I've defended everything, like especially that drop as well in the south there. The army can't kill me. I'm totally fine. So I like the fact that he respected the pushing attempts by GuMiho. It was just like 3 or 4 Phoenix getting all that info, denying the SCVs, denying the drop as well. It was just... Yeah, you're absolutely right. Every unit served its purpose and did it really, really nicely. And GuMiho never got to get going that game. Like, he really didn't. Everything that he did, the Marauder push early on, it was like, well, 2 probes, is it worth it? No. And everything beyond that, it's like, I didn't get to play my game. I didn't get started here. So very nicely done by Classic. And those kind of games always worry me a little bit, because if GuMiho is opening like that, and that's a build, I'm not going to pretend I'm the most active Terran on the ladder, because I'm absolutely not at all. We all know that. But I've been playing, and as long as I've ever played, those kind of builds are such like, I hope you do this, and I hope it's going to work out. Like, I really hope the stars align in one kind of way or shape or form. But yeah, that was not it whatsoever.
Absolutely, Ben. I've seen a similar push, but hitting a lot faster off of a double gas opening, where the Protoss just doesn't see it at all. These Marines and tanks seem to materialize out of nowhere, which Ancient Cistern's a great map for that. Is surprising your opponent because there's so many paths across it. As you were talking about it before the game even started, bunkers and tanks are up and it looks great. But remember, that was the Protoss map pick. The next map will be the Terran map pick. We're going into Royal Blood. Let's see if he can win on enemy territory. A clinical game 1. Going into map 2, it's Classic.
And spawning over in the top right here as our blue Terran, none other than the Towel Terran, GuMiho himself. It was fun last week with the casters, like backstage kind of thing, just watching the matches, going through the matches, and that series of GuMiho, like this conversation was happening while GuMiho was playing Dark, and they were having, you know, an absolute brawler of a series. Kevin brought it up, Rotterdam. He was like, you know what? GuMiho might be like one of the most underappreciated champions ever. And then we went back and looked at some of his matches, him getting that GSL title, because I always think about it as him dealing with Sue in the final and doing things that Sue had no idea what to do against, you know? Like, we spoke about it. Once it gets to those spellcasts, it's like, okay, what do I do? But on the way there, he took out some real titans, man. Like, in his group stages, he was like 2-0, 2-0, and it was players like Zest and what have you. Then in the semifinals, he took out Maru in a best-of-7 as well. Like, he really, for his period of time, was an absolutely phenomenal Terran. And I totally thought about it again. I'm like, yeah, and he's a guy that's gone to the army, and here he is going up against one of the scariest Zergs out there, Dark, and actually beating him with mech and stuff and making these games go all the way. I absolutely have to say, I'm super impressed that GuMiho is playing as well as he's ever played.
Absolutely. You know, that was a historic moment for GuMiho. That championship in, I believe it was 2017, 2018, somewhere around there, that actually came off the back of him revamping his mechanics. A lot of players, you know, they just get stuck in the way they play. And GuMiho felt like his weakness was actually, you know, his ability to keep up with the multitasking. He changed his control groups, how to use camera locations, how, you know, rapid fire for different commands, setting up his hotkeys, different mouse sensitivity, how he used his mouse. Obviously, he's called the Towel Terran because he has hyperhidrosis, a condition where he basically sweats constantly a large amount, and he has to have a small, like, little microfiber towel over his mouse to stop it from getting drenched. So he has, like, all these specific conditions, and he basically just found a way where he did all that, and yeah, beating Maru in that best-of-7, like, man, that's pretty crazy in a TVT. So GuMiho's done it before, and he definitely can do it again. Recently, he's been trying to find the secret source, and he's had a great return from the military over the last year and a half. But he's still just very close in a lot of these series. I would say Solar's ability to defeat mech is probably the biggest obstacle to his career right now. Solar has been a nemesis for GuMiho, a big problem for him. But someone like Classic here is a different obstacle, a different sort of obstacle, one that right now is keeping him pinned in on one base. But with the high ground command center, he was, of course, completely prepared for this.
What a funny shield battery, by the way. Like, that shield battery, it's obviously for if a push is to come much further on in the game, but it didn't save that probe early on. So, yeah, kind of funny that he went for it right there and there. But it will be a Phoenix opening again for Classic here, and obviously this is a different ball game entirely. There's no Marauder shenanigans. Here we do have an early medevac, and that is a very early medevac. And it's going to be a bunch of Marines and a Cyclone with it. So that is actually a very good opening against these Phoenix type plays.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the Robo's down pretty early. There's a second gateway building. There is an early shield battery. And I think Classic's happy to stay 2-base for a while. So can you actually push inside the natural? Maybe if you can pick off one of these Phoenix on the map or something like that. He's got a lot of Marines. He can also drop in the main as well and do a bit of multi-prong. Right now, Classic's very low on the units, and this is a super early push.
It really is. And like the problem with these Phoenix openings, you have 0 scouting besides that early Adept, and you have to send your Phoenix across the map early on. You really do.
Oh.
Look at this. That Phoenix getting absolutely shut down here. The Adept in the main base as well. He's got literally 2 units out on the map that can fight back. This is a disaster of a start for him.
Losing that Phoenix there is so huge. You need every Phoenix. They gain strength with power because they need the other Phoenix there to shoot the units when they pick them up. Every time you lose a Phoenix in the early game, it's a disaster. He's going to lift his units out of the main, back to the low ground, but already a fantastic start for GuMiho. He's building Tech Labs, SCVs, and Marines behind this, rotating down towards that natural, but Stalkers and a shield battery should be able to take him out. Good pullback by GuMiho. Does not want to fight in battery range.
No, he doesn't. Even in the lift-ups here, like, GuMiho is actually on point this game in particular. Resources lost tab must be massively in his favor as well. Yeah, 100 to 700. Now that this Stalker count's growing, he will absolutely be able to fight back. But will he? Oh, nice pickoffs here. These Cyclones are absolutely doing their job. And no third base to speak of either for Classic. And that's not through lack of trying, man. That is because he can't fight against this army right now. And it's just been slowly growing, forcing the shield battery overcharge as well, but he can't move away from that.
Yeah, battery. He's gonna have to take a Nexus on the top, on the triangle. He's sending a probe up there right now, but oh my lord, look at that. Even in the main base, I landed. Viking getting 6 probes. Oh, this is so bad right now for him. The Viking even not taken out just yet. Drop's gonna split off on the left side. GuMiho building a Banshee and a tank behind this. Making Cloak. Whoa. That is an odd choice. GuMiho's follow-up here is bizarre. It looks like he wants to keep pushing. I really thought he was just going to macro up and get way ahead, but what do you think of this follow-up?
I think it's crazy. I think it's really wild. I don't know if he's just thinking like, all right. He's not going to be thinking about getting an observer anytime soon, and just, you know, he's all about suffocating Classic, isn't he? He's all about suffocating him. Like even the Viking that he used earlier to take out probes, he's utilizing everything that he has out on the field to do something, which is a super cool way of playing. And this Phoenix attempt from Classic, like, what has he been able to do with them so far? I mean, nothing. They've been trying to be defensive, which anything else would have probably been better. And look at GuMiho, man. He's just all over the shop.
Oh, battery overcharge going down, but we're careful. The Immortal's out of range of that healing. He's trying to go in and out his Classic. He does take out the Siege tank. Good pick off for him. GuMiho definitely going a little bit wild. He's got the 3rd command center behind it. So obviously he's trying to smother him like almost harassment-wise and then surprise with the Banshees. He will go to the macro follow-up behind it. The worker count is insane. 55 for GuMiho. As soon as he floats the 3rd down, it's going to be filled with workers. And, you know, give him 3 minutes. He'll have stim, shields, 1-1 upgrades. And you'll forget the fact that these barracks were so incredibly late. And, oh, that's huge. That is massive.
That's maybe the first blip on the radar here, isn't it? And now shield batteries will start in the mineral lines, which will be very good. Observer is getting chrono boosted as well. GuMiho is still in a phenomenal position, don't get me wrong, but amidst all of this that he's bringing across the map, he was up to like 1,200 minerals, and then he pumped out a bunch of stuff, a bunch of buildings, and yeah, Banshees will start arriving, dealing damage. I think right now Classic's in such bad shape that whatever happens from here, as long as GuMiho kills something, deals a little bit of damage, he's in fine shape, you know.
That worker advantage, I mean, even in workers is bad for Protoss. Down 10 workers is terrible. You may have a bit of a tech advantage in the Colossus department, but the Forge and the Twilight are very, very late. And the double upgrades coming in for Terran are going to be a very big lead. 4 probes go down to that previous harassment, and that was just, yeah, extra little bits of damage that stack up over time. Things like the Cyclones aren't the most useful later in the game. And Classic is a master of defense. So he's going to try and look towards a 4th base, probably just for the minerals, and go for a big Colossus Zealot Archon army, a sort of ground-pounding army. He's going to need some fantastic engagements, though. And I'm trying to think maybe a few small Zealot run-bys, a few little backstabs to buy time, and just going into the Disruptors once he's got the Colossus count that he wants. Those are the ways that Classic can pull himself back.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it can come down to GuMiho getting a little bit too eager with some of these harass opportunities, right? Like, and we all know that he absolutely can do. If he can grab these Cyclones while all this is happening, I mean, that's something. But seeing the Phoenix over there dealing with your Cyclones allows your Banshees to come in. And this is something that GuMiho's like, you know what? As long as I'm dealing some damage, it's not bad for me because I know you're behind. But Classic, he's dealt with this really well. That Observer perfectly placed. The Phoenix are back over. And 2 Banshees and 3 Cyclones for 6 probes. I think that's a trade that he's more than willing to take here at this point.
Yeah, I mean, any trade's a good trade for GuMiho, but then you look at that one and you're like, yeah, maybe not. 7 probes, there's not that many. But they weren't the most useful units for the next stage in the game. The units lost tab is looking relatively even between the 2 players at around 3,000 resources lost aside. And the +2 bio attack is on the way, as well as +2 armor starting up. GuMiho, one of the fastest Terrans when it comes to actually making 2-2. A lot of Terrans like to commit harder to their 1-1 and really try to take the Protoss out. GuMiho always likes to keep those upgrades rolling for the future. Those siege tanks could be huge here, but they're going to get jumped on.
Oh, I mean, nice start. But this army that GuMiho's crafted is so good against Colossus armies, unless he's caught in siege, because, I mean, that amount of tanks waiting at the bottom of a ramp like that, this drop is a little bit scandalous, I gotta say, because if that does get caught, if it does get shut down, but the fact that there is so few Zealots on the map right now for Classic means these tanks can really reign supreme against Colossus-based army.
And only 2 Phoenix, it's not enough. I mean, that drop, Marines wreck Phoenix. And what's he going to do here? He's got to send a bunch of units up into his main, but at the same time, GuMiho's poking at the 3rd base. You don't want to send much up here. A single Colossus walks up with the high ground. That's a lot of Zealot Archon that is not at the front right now. And seeing that there, GuMiho's going to push on the front. He's going to see that he's out of position. The tank's moving forward, but nice pullback by Classic, trying to fall back. It's just a few Stalkers, an Archon, an Immortal. The sentry does fall. Classic regroups on the front. He holds onto his 4th Nexus for now. And I mean, arguably, you can give this Nexus up. So remember, it's all about GuMiho, you know, getting over. If GuMiho's being patient like this, don't fight into the siege tanks. And maybe even think about starting Nexus on the right side already. Prepare to give this up. Because if you can max out as Classic, there's definitely a chance to take the correct engagement. But attacking into that choke point, into that much bio, it's about a bit of a hard decision to make. And I think it will be a game-losing decision if he goes for it.
I think so too. But he's kind of thinking about it. There's no shield battery with him at this 4th base. And is he trying to make one there? He is at the bottom of the screen, but kind of too late at this point. These Colossus are really going uncontested here. He is doing some harass on the other side of the map with the Warp Prism and the Zealots, but I think GuMiho did shut it down. And look where Classic's expanding to here. He's like, you know what? I'm with Pig. I can give up this base. I can move over to the right side of the map because this isn't the fastest or easiest army to reposition, but he's moving in as +2 finished here, Pig, but nice pickups on these tanks. The Archons are doing a really good job of soaking up those shots as well. And look at that. All the tanks have actually fell in this army. Classic.
But here comes the reinforced. There's another entire army behind that. Classic took a surprisingly good fight, realizing how much army was at home. But my gosh, the amount of bio with +2 upgrades versus +2 kicking in for Classic as well. Classic loses his 4th base. He's down 6 workers and 50 supply in total. So that's 45 army supply advantage for GuMiho. He's got 5 ghosts building at a time. As if the army numbers weren't enough to worry about. EMP is going to be added to the mix, and that should shut Classic out of this game.
I mean, 0 armor. I mean, I know this is the Protoss style at the moment, getting just the attack upgrades, but having 0 armor with this much bio when they're already +2, that army is going to get shredded. And the one thing that's really been helping you in these fights is your Archons. But those bad boys, they are going to pop like blimps in this next fight when these ghosts come along, and I don't even think it's going to get there, Pig. I mean, the Phoenix, they're brave bad boys over there, lifting up those tanks, but that is just so much bio from GuMiho, and look at him, he's trying to micro with the Warp Prism as well, but GG, we have a tied-up series here, and yet again.
Nice aesthetically pleasing engagement for the Terran at the end there. The Zealots charge into almost a funnel. You see the Terran kind of expanding backwards in a sort of semicircle, a concave, some would say. And yeah, gunning them all down. Very few units actually connecting for the Protoss, not quite having the numbers. And the men with the gun stand triumphant at the end of the day. This one's going to go to the deciding match again. And that's awesome. I really felt like these series would be well fought, very competitive matches today. And we've seen 2 of these games. One Classic crushed, one GuMiho crushed. Game 3, give us a close back and forth macro game. Show us what you've got. I really want to see if they can do it. What cool opening for GuMiho, by the way, though. Even with the early shield battery, just not being able to defend this, and the landed Viking, the Marine drop follow-up, felt like the layers of pressure were just non-stop.
Yeah, this was one of those games where everything went to plan, and you know the first game, the build order didn't work out for him. The second game, more than worked out for him. Having 3 Cyclones, a bunch of Marines, and the medevac itself just kept those Marines alive for so long, didn't they? And it just allowed him to get this contain on his opponent. I really like this tanky army that he had as well. It was very well crafted, like the follow-up and what have you. And Classic, he's the one that couldn't really get into it. I'm with you. I want to see both of them get into it, both having a nice build, a solid build. Obviously, that's not how StarCraft always works out, but so far, the games that both these guys have won, they've played real good doing it.
Yeah, getting in control and running away with the game. Top players very good at taking those advantages and running with it, and not giving the other player any opportunities to get back into the game, really. These ones were such big leads, it was like, you know, it's not, oh, he's taking a small edge there. It was pretty dominating, and getting kept off the third base when the Terran has their third command center finished. That's a nasty situation to be in as Classic. But you can already see his style. It's very, very similar to Showtime. I don't think Classic is always a turtley player, but in this matchup specifically, I really feel like he loves just defense. Phoenix Colossus, pretty much every matchup, camping at home. And he actually looked quite good even like the last season of GSL that he played in versus Maru. Was kind of going toe-to-toe with him, and I was like, oh, you know, this is really good. And then Maru just kind of catches him out of position and wins the game like Maru has that ability to do. But Classic has shown that he can really kind of just survive a lot of the standard Terran attacks. You need to add a little bit of special sauce. You need to have some next level positioning or catch him off guard.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like the way that Classic's been approaching this series is a bit different to how I see most Korean pros do it. Like, I know Maru in recent interviews has been like, one difference between the Euros, or at least the foreign Protosses, is their willingness to go Phoenix. I think it was very much talking about max packs, but here, Classic's been absolutely willing to do that, and he's very good at it. And on a map like this is a larger map where Phoenix can raise to Supreme, and spawning over in the top left as our red toss, it is Classic.
And some call him the GuMiho. Down here at the bottom right side, a very creative Terran player. Let's see what sauce he's got for us on Gresvan. It's GuMiho.
Yeah, I always like watching GuMiho play, just because he's so nuts, isn't he? Like, it's just, you know you're going to get a real game out of this bad boy where whatever it takes, it might be also one thing where it's not necessarily super planned out. Like, maybe the first course of the game might be planned, but then it's just utter chaos what he brings. And yeah, I love it, man. I love it. He's a hard player to emulate, because a lot of these games, I really do feel that he goes more by feeling as opposed to anything else.
Yeah, some of his timing attacks I think are amazing. Like, I love copying a few of his builds, but then there's ones like that last game where you're like, yeah, no. He's like, yeah, I'm going to constantly attack with, like, the Viking will be here, then it'll be there, and then the medevac will be here, then it'll be there, and the Cyclones will be in and out on the front trying to get the battery, and then the siege tank will come in, and then the Banshees will go in and out, and like, you're like, okay, this is just too chaotic and there's too many things happening. Like, an average Joe could not copy this, you know. It's almost hero style, but with the Terran pieces. It's just all over them. And he does it against Zerg as well, where like he'll just attack with like, and you're like, wait, does he have 3 Reapers and 2 Hellions at my base? You're like, huh? No one builds more than 1 Reaper with their Hellions, and GuMiho will just do it, and you know, he'll pick off a queen and then he'll get another queen, and suddenly like he starts spiraling the game. There's Liberators arriving at unusual timings, and there's like an 8-minute Hellbat timing way later than you'd ever expect it. That's GuMiho. He's always going to show you things you've never seen before. That creativity puts his opponents in unfamiliar territory, and he does force a lot more mistakes out of them.
Yeah, he absolutely does. Like, one of my favorite things when I watch him play, especially against Zerg, it'll be like, you know, you get the Reaper, then you go for reacted Hellions, and then he's like, you know what? Out of this barracks, instead of doing something else with it, like making a Marine or something, I'm going to keep on making Reapers for these reacted Hellions, just have 1 extra, and it can really throw like a spanner in the works on how you're trying to deal with stuff, right? So, yeah, and I have no idea what triggers it. Like here, Reactor into Reacted Reaper? I mean, nutty. I'm looking forward to it, though.
No, I mean, the Reaper into Reacted Reaper is kind of wild, isn't it? This is, it makes you wonder, is he going to do a full TVT and go like 6 Reapers, 3 Hellions? I mean, that's a really good attack in TVT. It would be insane to commit to it here, but I think just 3 Reaper 2 Hellion should do the trick, and that alone can do a lot of damage. Phoenix not going to shut this down on its own. I think there's just 2 Adepts and no shield battery. Oh no, there is 3 Adepts. Classic chrono boosting a lot. He must have chronoed his gateway units at least twice to get them out this early.
But look at this. He's kind of sniffing something out. I do love that little pullback as well with the Adept Shades there. Because here, this army, he spotted it. And now, if you're the Terran, you really want to get something done with that. Look at Classic. He's like, you know what? Let's start making a wall here. Get some Adepts into the main. He's actually responding to this all very nicely and quickly, isn't he? Like, he loses a probe, but that could have been far worse with this kind of situation.
Super clean defense here for Classic. And oh, is that a wall off on the natural as well? Oh, the battery! The Adept barely pulls back and survives. Oh my lord, losing only 2 probes. This is perfect defense for Classic. He can move a probe out, take a 3rd base, and he'll be in a just amazing position. What good D.
What good D indeed. And look at that, by the way. GuMiho, Cyclone, Raven. He's on 3 gases. He's getting the Cyclone Magfield upgrade as well. Like, I'm always this guy that I'm like, you know there's Phoenix out on the map? Going for Raven is absolute lunacy. Like, lunacy pig. And he's going for it. And if he can kind of sneak that out and get... and, you know, also change the starport so it isn't having the tech lab anymore, Classic will be none the wiser. Like, those turrets later on could be quite glaringly painful for him.
Only takes 7 Phoenix shots to kill a Raven. They basically fly past it and it's gone. You blink, it's gone. But it spells a game changing. I have always been in part of that, the church of building Ravens versus Phoenix is terrible. And the last year of StarCraft has taught me otherwise. It's taught me that when the Terran is a true expert Raven operator, they always find a way. And indeed, he's hitting it on the edge of the map. He's going to sneak it along that north. The Cyclones and the Marines coming in. That Stalker and the Adepts taking a fair bit of damage down here. Marines moving in with it as well. Raven is going to head towards that main to drop some auto turrets. Magfield Marine pressure into a 3rd command center on location nonetheless. This is such a dangerous push. I think he's I'd say he's got a recall if he's Protoss, but he's Terran. He doesn't have that ability. He needs to just run. Those Phoenix can pick up everything and shut it down.
So he does have a Raven in the main base right now. I think he even made a 2nd Raven as well, which, again, lunacy, GuMiho, absolute lunacy. He's still pumping out Ravens, by the way. Like, this game, he's playing wild, Piggy. And you know what? Even though this push got shut down, his army right now that he's got left standing here, I think it can hold. Like, I really do, yeah. Especially with these Magfield upgrades. I mean, he has to be careful because these Phoenix can get a lot of damage done and lift things up, which they are going to start doing. Oh, beautiful lift ups.
Auto turrets do a fair bit of damage, though. Remember, if you don't deal with them, they still deal a lot. And actually, not a bad trade for GuMiho. If he can keep those Ravens alive, that is a big hit. But he gets another Phoenix.
Okay. This is... That fight for Classic, he was hoping for far more out of that. Like, resources lost tab still not the best for GuMiho, but remember, everything that he's been doing has been kind of slowing down the economy of Classic. And I dare say his economy has probably been mining a little bit better over the last few minutes, and he's going for a second. He's going mech in TVP.
Yeah, he's going full mech, which is wild. Mech is famously ineffective versus Protoss due to Zealots beating tanks and you know, everything else. Oh man, he didn't repair his units. Auto turret goes down. The Ravens get bopped, but so does a siege tank from the Immortal. 2 Phoenix falling for the Protoss. He wants to take care of that Immortal. He doesn't want to let the Protoss out of here, but that Cyclone on red hit points just getting way too close to the sun. GuMiho needs to contain himself. Gets way too excited trying to chase that army down.
That was one of those moments where I was just like, GuMiho, play to survive. And then it was like, but I can kill everything, right? No. You can't do it. And he goes, you know. Back at home, by the way, despite being against so many kind of mechy units here and, you know, the Magfield upgrade, Classic's still like, you know what? I'm going to go Colossus. I'm also going to go Double Forge. I feel this is one of those games that you don't need the Double Forge, you know? Like, you can just kind of focus on the attack upgrades, but he will get confirmation of what he's up against here, because he got to see that there's a couple of factories out, and yeah, this is going to get spicy. Now I'm very curious what Classic's going to do.
Oh, Vikings here chasing into a losing battle. But 2 more Vikings come out and turn it in his favor. Oh, GuMiho almost gets one more. Not quite. It's going to be Charge and Immortals for Classic. Now, I've been a big proponent of the fact that Protoss can deal with mech with ground army. and you don't need to rush air. A lot of pro players over the years have said the opposite. Just go air. You always win with air. Mech always loses to air. Go carriers, go tempest, go that sort of stuff. But the thing is, Immortals wreck siege tanks. Zealots wreck siege tanks. The problem is, of course, dealing with things like Hellbats and Widow Mines that can clear the Zealots and the Archons and everything really quickly. And when you get to like eight or more tanks, they can also gun down Immortals very quickly from far away. The problem is, even when that Terran army looks really good in a choke point or behind a wall, the moment it gets flanked from 2 or 3 sides by Zealot, Immortal, Archon, man, it crumbles. Like, it's a glass cannon. And that's why GuMiho, he's going to have to play this incredibly slow, really positional, always sitting behind walls, and just do a lot of harassment to try to slow down Classic's economy. Blue Flame Hellions, running into bases, Banshees, Widow Mine drops, all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. I like the thing that's on my mind right now is the fact that if you are Classic, you are up against a guy that can do things with mech that I feel like nobody else can, right? Like, he is aggressive. He'll do these things where he gets like medevacs as well. He starts dropping Hellbats on you. He's recalling this Colossus as well, getting him out of there. That was nice by Classic. But Classic right now, he's out on the map thinking, oh, I can contain a mech player, right? And GuMiho's like, hold my beer. Like, this is not ordinary mech. So he's got a bunch of Vikings, bunch of Hellions and Cyclones. Now he's going to the more normal mech behind it. But like right now, it doesn't look like there's holes. Like there's not that availability to just kill him. And also, like, even if you are trying to be greedy, look at this. Classic's actually pulled really damn early, so he doesn't lose that much. So nicely done by him. But GuMiho, he's actually hiding some Hellions down there in the south here, waiting for a move just like this. But he doesn't realize that he got spotted by an observer. So Classic, they're both playing quite smart about this. This is a great game. So this is what we wanted, Piggy.
Heck yeah, mate. Mass command center's on the way. There still isn't a lot of turrets guarding from a prism in the main. One big zealot warping in the main can ruin your day. You're so immobile, and if you ever lose those tanks, you lose the game. GuMiho does not know where that army is right now. He's going to find out, and he's going to have to be set up in a good position. He sees a lot of Zealot, Archon, Immortal coming in. Oh, the Cyclone Miss Rally walks up the cliff. The Cyclones take it out. Well worth losing 2 Cyclones, I believe, to clear that up. Oh, he even has SCVs up front on hold position. The Zealots can't get past the hold position SCVs. Amazing positioning for GuMiho.
Oh my goodness, why did he walk in there, Pig? Why? I mean, the Zealots is still sort of trading. The supplies are both absolutely getting bopped here. 12 SVs go down amidst the chaos, but holy crap, that was about the worst fight that Classic could have ever taken. Still, maybe that's kind of what he was looking for, to deal the eco damage while taking a bad fight, but my goodness, he got absolutely cuddled in there, funneled in there, and absolutely AoE'd down. That was an absolute massacre.
For those who don't know, workers are terrible combat units, but the reason that worked is it was a full wall off except for that opening. And by putting the workers on a hold position in the opening, the unit AI works in a way where if a worker doesn't have an attack command, it's just either moving, mining, or on hold position, it is lower priority. So all those Zealots and Archons were automatically trying to get at the siege tanks and Hellbats that in their minds were within arm's reach. They were just over those SCVs. Because the SCVs were on hold position, they could not get moved out of the way. So unless Classic, hit them with like some splash damage or actually manually targeted those SCVs, he was just going to get stuck on it. It was actually the siege tanks killing the Zealots that also splashed the SCVs and eventually broke a way open. Classic is still in a decent supply position. He does lose that Warp Prism in the main. Got to be careful against these Zealot run by siege tanks, can do massive friendly fire to the SCVs.
Really fun defensive setups by GuMiho. Like, he just had the perfect amount of units here, there, and everywhere just to make sure that he wasn't going to take damage from any of these little shenanigans. Like, those 2 Hellbats being... In fact, I was thinking those 2 Hellbats and the Cyclone was enough to deal with those Zealots that dropped out, but apparently not, and 13 SCVs do fall. And Classic, he's playing this like Zerg's play against mech, right? Like, he's just expanding all over the shop. He's up to 90 workers, and he never has like a massive army, but he's out on the map. This is a really cool game, man.
I don't know if GuMiho can withstand it. If he can, it's amazing. There's just so many units coming in, though, and GuMiho lost a lot of SCVs. The Liberators coming in complicates things, but I feel without some Widow Mines, it can get really nasty. I feel like you need Hellbats and Widow Mines. It's kind of like defending against the Lingbane Hydra, from Zerg, where you really need like a good mix of units, perfect wall-offs and positioning, and it's the wall-offs that are key, and the wall-offs are very often lacking. Those tanks below this army are in the open right now. They are not behind a wall-off. I'm very much worried that GuMiho gets jumped on. He's got some Lib Harass coming in, but cannons are well set up for it. It's a lot of
That is a massive, massive mech army. In Classic, he's maxed out. I think this is where he can start trading a little bit, and it doesn't matter how poor it is, because he's going to be rich behind this. And I mean, there's a lot of SVs falling. That, though, oh my goodness, the tanks, you talked about it, they don't have that meat shield, and oh my goodness, TY Clip 2.0 right here. That is why, ladies and gentlemen, we don't play mech that often against Protoss.
Yeah, that was not pretty. I mean, we missed half of the fight. Now, that's not because the observers are sleeping at their post. It's because the fight takes 2 seconds. The moment the Zealots charge on the tanks, it's over. It's over. Like, you just can't, everything disappears. The Zealots are so cheap. The tanks are so expensive and slow to build. It's impossible. It's very hard to deal with. And that's why if those tanks ever get caught out of position, you are in trouble. Classic, as you said, 90 probes, play like a Zerg, double upgrades, and just swamp in with those cheap expendable units. The Zealots getting in the mineral lines, dragging the tank fire in. It's very difficult because it's not just about having, you know, siege tanks. It's tanks enough Hellbats to try and deal with the Zealots. You need, you know, to start adding more and more complexity, but you also need to keep your economy up. You can't fall too far behind or he's going to swap into Sky Toss. And as you take those new bases, you get spread thin, and it's very hard to keep those wall-offs up in front of those siege tanks. So really nice engagements by Classic. And I really feel like even that ground style, which is supposedly the inferior style. I mean, you look at what he just did with it and you're like, okay, Zealots, Immortals, Archons, that's a good composition.
Yeah, I mean, Classic did everything that he had to, right? Like, he defended, he held on, and he made mech look like we all kind of think mech does in our heads against Protoss. But anyhow, we're going to go over to the desk and see what they think about this series.
You know, I was really hoping GuMiho was going to show us the light, show us the way for mech in TVP. That didn't happen. That was over like that. It was so fast. Wardy, Loco joining me. Loco, I was really hoping, I imagine you were probably hoping as well to see something magical there, but it was not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, we've played this game for the last 13 years. Players have come and gone. They have tried it many times over and over and over again to make mech work against Protoss. And I mean, in my mind, right, if anyone can pull it off, it's probably GuMiho. But
yeah, probably.
Yeah, like Pig already pointed out, if one of those fights goes poorly, if you have the Zealots charging on top of it. And then we had that one engagement before that too, right, where the Colossus ended up falling. We had the whole position workers there. It really seemed like this was the game where mech was gonna, be viable against Protoss, but not the case.
No. These are the highlights brought to you by Aramco as we take a look back at games number 1 and 2, which happened a little bit quicker at Warden than our third game. What did you make of the series as a whole?
Yeah, the first game I thought was very good for Classic, right? Just identifying when he can go after defending and everything. So that was really cool. Second game, you just saw GuMiho kind of take the reins and say, right, well, I'm not going to let you take control. Let me take control early. I just think both these players showed in this first 2 games kind of the element, and then honestly, I'm kind of sad about the mech game 3 because like mech just never freaking works, right? I really wish we'd seen like another kind of like a macro bio game versus Protoss. I don't doubt that GuMiho has ways to make the mech work. It's just when mech doesn't work, I'm like, oh well, yeah, I already expected to see that, right? So I just would have loved to see what it would have looked like had he not been playing it. And obviously if we both had an even opening, because this was a bit of a macro game, but this one was GuMiho already very far ahead in that game from the opening.
Yeah, as this game now finishes up and it gets going into this game number 3. And as you said, this was that engagement that started things off here, Loco, and we're like, what are we watching? I do feel like this is a moment where Classic is allowing it to work, you know, for GuMiho's side of things, as opposed to Classic, you know, just trouncing it, I suppose.
Yeah, this I think it was Pig that said it, right? It kind of felt like a Protoss player playing like Zerg, right? They take the Zergy approach of just expanding all over the map. He's now at 86 workers as we're looking at that final battle. Just basically trying to, well, throw stuff at the Terran player, and eventually, generally at least, that mech army will roll over and die, but it was a good attempt right there by Gumi.
It definitely was. So we have now a confirmed qualification match here in the upper bracket. It will be Ragnarok going up against Classic. So that is hopefully going to be a banger. I'm looking forward to that. And that will be a best of 5, which will be played later on down the line here in this bracket. For now, though, we have 2 more matches up in this upper bracket. Creator versus Cure and DRG versus Hero. Down in the bottom, already confirming Bunny versus GuMiho, Wardy. That's that's a little bit of a heartbreaker potentially. I think a lot of people are out there are watching and wanting both of these players to advance on. So one of them's going to be gone.
Two fan favorites, right? I mean, you've got Bunny, who everyone loves Bunny, everyone loves GuMiho. They're both super fun to watch. They've both been good as well. Obviously, I think we didn't get to see Bunny last weekend, but we've seen how good GuMiho has been. But we know Bunny's in great shape too. The fact that one of these players is not going to make it is obviously heartbreaking, but that's just the toughness of this tournament, right? Not everyone can make it. The quality of play is extremely high. I think the craziest thing is you look at that match, and I don't really have a favorite because it's TVT, and I feel like in Korea, the TVT games really can just go any which way. Like on any given day, most of the Terrans can take down the other Terrans. Like, yeah, you put Mario up above others, but outside of that, the Terrans really do just go at each other and trade all the time. So excited to see how it turns out.
It's a bit of a pit fight for those Terrans. All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Time to go to a break here at Gamers Without Borders. When we return, we have ourselves another Protoss entering the arena here against the Terran in Creator versus Cure. We'll see you soon.